if you are in business, number one, you should have a separate business bank account. Now, where people get tripped up is they say, well, I need that money. I need that money to pay my personal rent and pay
Mm-hmm.
my personal car payment.
Right.
I get it. So you deposit to the business account and then you take a withdrawal that's called owner's equity.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that. But Uncle Sam wants to see that money going into a business bank account and not commingling.
Hey, BPP fam, welcome to another episode of Black People Parenting, the space where we have conversations with Black folks about raising Black children. I'm your host, family engagement educator, and the glad dad extraordinaire, Dr. Chavis. And in today's episode, we're talking taxes, y'all. I'm going to keep it, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're talking about taxes because we are right smack dab in the middle of tax season. And I want to make sure that all my people know what to do, what not to do. If somebody tell you they're getting you a $175,000 refund, stay away from them unless you want to end up in handcuffs. So I have my favorite tax professional on with me today, Miss Dedra Moon from the Moon Group. Hello, ma'am. How are you? How you living? How are you? How's everything going?
I am doing well, Dion. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and just be a part of the BPP fam.
Yeah. Now you are a BPP extended cousin. On my mama's side, like you will represent for BPP. You bring all the people to the cookout when it's time for some smoke. You are the first one on the front line, so I had to bring you up here because I know that you can give the people what they want, but more importantly, you can give them what they need. So,
Indeed.
let's talk about taxes because this is the time of year where, of course, people start getting their W-2s. People start trying to figure out like where they should go, how they should file their taxes, who they should file their taxes with, what they're going to do with their refund, how can they get the biggest refund. All of these questions are, on people's minds. And especially as parents, we think about these things and we think about what we can do to just kind of make sure that we are doing everything that we need to do in terms of taxes. So why don't we start with the services that you provide? First of all, I want people to know that you are a reputable tax professional. You ain't just, my people. You are somebody that has been doing this for a while. So let's start off with kind of like the services that you provide and your background in this field of taxes and finance.
Okay, awesome. So let me give you guys a little bio. Okay, a little bio. The Moon Group is not NOT. We are not more money taxes, okay? So if you are about any shenanigans, we are not the company for you, okay? We don't do that. I am way too pretty to be in orange,
Right.
because orange is not the new black,
Right,
okay?
right. Orange is still orange.
So, and thank you, Dion, for that introduction. I am a tax professional, and I do say it that way because there's a difference, in my opinion, between being a tax professional and a tax preparer. So many people think, oh, I can do taxes. I can just, go on whatever company site they want to and punch in some numbers. And I don't knock anybody's hustle. I am not a hater. If that is your gig, that's what you do, okay. I, on the other hand, am a tax professional. I do have a bachelor's of accounting from the Tuskegee University. I love my alma mater. And I also hold an MBA. So I am not new to this. I'm true to this.
Okay.
And as your tax professional, I'm not just keying in numbers. I am looking at your numbers strategically, as well as giving you strategic suggestions on how to improve your situation going forward. So when you pick someone to do your taxes, just make sure you know what you're getting, whether you're getting somebody who's just punching numbers in a software or someone who has the knowledge to really guide you in making this the best situation for you and your family. And that's what I do.
And I think that's important because I saw someone on Facebook, somebody that I went to high school with, doing taxes, and I was confused because this is somebody that failed algebra 2 with me. So I I I don't understand like how you doing taxes, and a couple of some years back you couldn't even make it through algebra 2. But that's a different story. Again, I'm not judging nobody for what they do,
Indeed,
right?
indeed.
That's what they do. But you're just not gonna do my taxes. I don't care how you got your arms folded on your. I don't care about none of that. you you can't do my
Right,
stuff.
right. Indeed,
I know that for a fact.
indeed.
So let's talk about being someone who is a tax professional. What do you think is, because now we're seeing a lot of people, doing their taxes themselves, and a lot of people are doing like TurboTax. And I'll be honest, like I'm someone who did TurboTax for at least the last 5 to 7 years, right? And it wasn't until I, had things in my business, like my business, that I said, okay, well, maybe this is going to be a little bit too much for me to handle this year. So, and that's when I decided to, get a tax professional, right? So what do you think, why do you think it's important for people to know the difference, or know like when it's time for them to say, okay, maybe this is not the best thing for me to try to do myself. Maybe I need to step out and get a tax professional to help me with this.
Okay, great question, Dion. I can share with you that as a professional, continuing education is a must. So people like myself, we are constantly studying and taking exams to be fluent in tax law. So if you go to something like TurboTax, which I'm not hating on TurboTax, but if you do one of the self-prepared returns, the software assumes you know what you're doing. The software is not going to ask you questions to identify what you need because it assumes you know what you need. And that's the difference between doing DIY, which is TurboTax, or using a professional like myself. We're going to make sure we ask you the right questions. We're going to make sure we go that extra mile to make sure you get all of your appropriate legal deductions so that you don't pay a penny more than you have to. Now, when I say that, I like to back that up with this. I believe that we all should pay our fair share of taxes. We all should. However, we should not pay a penny more. Okay?
Not one red
So,
cent.
so I say that to say, with the DIY, the software doesn't know exactly what questions to ask you because the assumption is you know what you're doing. And with the tax professional, we're going to make sure we turn over all those stones and look through every nook and cranny to make sure you pay the least amount possible.
Right. And especially, I think it's important. Over the last couple of years, we've seen things like the stimulus payments, we've seen the PPP and the EIDL loans. And, those are a lot of things that, of course, we see people who joke about those things on social media and say, oh, I wish I would have got a PPP. But for those folks who did it and did it legitimately, those might be things that if you're trying to do it yourself, you may not have a full grasp of how to calculate certain things. Or if there was I know for some people who might have gotten the stimulus money, they didn't get like the correct amounts at one time, right? So the government might have sent them funds that didn't account for a child that they might have had in their home, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's important to have someone in place who knows these things and kind of knows the intricacies of the tax laws, right? Because again, we don't want to end up paying anybody or paying back anybody when we could have just gotten it right the first time.
Yeah. And then too, Dion, if you DIY it, or you go to someone who may not have a full breadth of the knowledge that they need, then when you have to fix it, there's a cost for that.
Right.
So it's just do it right the first time to save yourself the headache.
What are some of the common questions that you have when people may be coming to you for the first time, because again, I want to be sure that people who are listening and who are viewing this get a full understanding of, like, we have to take control of um our taxes and our finances, right? I think this
Mhm,
country is ran like a business, and I think we have to
mhm,
run our personal lives like a business, right? And a
mhm,
lot of times we don't do that. A lot of times we just uh, do what we have to do to get a refund check at the end of the, when it's tax time, and we,
mhm,
get that $10,000 refund check, and then we blow it, or we do whatever, whatever
mhm.
the case may be. So I want to be sure that we, as Black folks specifically, how to have a better understanding of how we can manage our money throughout the year like it's a business, and how we can take advantage of these tax laws. But what are some of the most common misconceptions or questions that you might have for people coming to you for the first time?
Okay, awesome. So I don't want to give you most common questions. I want to give you the questions people don't know to ask
Mm,
that will come back to haunt them
mhm,
later.
that's good.
Because as you mentioned, and I get it, I get it. Sometimes these tax refunds are the largest amount of money you have in your hand at one time throughout the year. I get it. If you're getting back 10 grand, when other than tax time do you have that much money in your
Hmm.
hand?
Right.
So I get it. However, in getting that large of a refund, what that generally tells me is that you're not making oftentimes very much money. And where that comes in is that maybe you've taken a ton of write offs, and that will come back to bite you, especially when you're trying to get financing.
Mm,
I see this so often, Dion, and it's really sad because people will come to me and say, "Hey, I want to buy a house." And the first thing I say, which is what the mortgage lender will say, "Let me see your last two tax returns." And they have written off so much that it looks like they didn't make any money,
mm,
which at the time, that $10,000 refund felt great. Oh, we got 10 stacks, 10 bands. Yes, let me have it. I get it. But then 2 years from now, you don't qualify for anything that you want to actually buy.
mhm, mhm,
So, what people don't ask me is, how will this affect me going forward? And
mhm,
I'm a big proponent of making sure you understand the decisions you make today to get that big refund can come back to haunt you two
mhm,
years from now.
mhm, mhm. Do people, at one time, when I was a young man, just starting work in the job, in the job world, there was this thing, and I don't know if people still do this, but you would start a job, and then they would ask you how many dependents that you have, and you would put nine.
Mhm, mhm,
And you don't have no kids, no nothing, but you would
mhm.
put, and I don't even know if I should be sharing this, but I'm sure there's some sort of statute of limitations. Um, I'm not even speaking from experience. It's just what I heard. This
Right.
is what I heard
What
on the
you
street.
heard.
What I
Right.
heard,
You heard.
right? You would put that you got 9 dependents, and you don't have not a child or
Mhm.
nothing, but you would do that so they could take the least amount of money out of your check. Is that still a thing? Like, do people still do that? Is that still common?
Yeah.
And if it
Yeah.
is, like, what is it? Does it make sense to do?
Okay. So that is very much still common.
Mm,
People do it all the time, and sometimes they do it inadvertently, and sometimes they do it intentionally.
mhm.
So
Everybody I know did it intentionally, but
I'm trying to be kind,
right.
Dion. I'm
Okay,
trying to be
okay,
kind.
okay.
Okay.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
If you are doing it inadvertently, please talk with someone to figure out how to do your W 4. If you are doing it intentionally, stop. Stop it. Because what's happening is you're telling Uncle Sam that you have all of these people that you support on this paycheck. So Uncle Sam says, okay, well, you can't contribute anything from your pay. Well, fast forward to tax time, Uncle Sam expects you to reconcile. Okay, all year you said you were supporting all these people. Okay, let's square up. Let's see the tax return. Let's reconcile. Oh, you don't have 9 people to claim? Oh, okay. So that $6,000
Mm-hmm.
that you should have been paying piece by piece, run me my money now.
Now you got to pay like you weigh.
Run me my money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Run
Mm-hmm.
me my money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Uncle Sam is saying.
Right.
So the withholdings are really your opportunity to pay your tax debt over time, interest free.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, in terms of, because we have a lot of people who are, um, they're entrepreneurs. They may work in the gig economy. They may do,
Mm-hmm,
do things like Uber. They may do
mm-hmm.
things like, tutoring on the side, things like that. What are some things that they need to watch out for, or they need to understand as a part of getting their taxes ready for what's this 2023 for this year?
Yes. Okay. Oh my goodness, Dion. So we could have a whole another session on gig economies,
Mhm.
side hustles.
Mm.
We could have a whole session. So please have me back just
Mhm.
for that because
Mhm.
I
Okay.
have a lot to say.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what happens is we we see people doing Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and Instacart and babysitting and doing hair and cutting hair and doing makeup. There are all of these people who do these entrepreneurial things, which I applaud. I love to see us out here making something out of nothing. I love that. The challenges that we face, number one, is ev- not everybody, but many people use this word LLC. Oh, I went and got my LLC. Okay, okay, okay.
Preach. So preach to the people, Deidre. Preach to the people.
Okay, I get it. I get it. So when you get your LLC, you are actually creating a corporate cloak. Okay, so the LLC provides you with protection from personal liability.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's great. However, the LLC does not change your taxation. So that means that your business activity is going to be taxed at your personal rate. Okay. Number two, many people do what's called commingling, where they are mingling personal funds with the business funds. Uncle Sam don't like that.
Mhm.
He does not like that. And that's one quick way to get your LLC revoked. So if you are in business, number one, you should have a separate business bank account. Now, where people get tripped up is they say, well, I need that money. I need that money to pay my personal rent and pay
Mhm.
my personal car payment.
Right.
I get it. So you deposit to the business account and then you take a withdrawal that's called owner's equity.
Mhm.
So you can do that. But Uncle Sam wants to see that money going into a business bank account and not commingling. So, really funny story. I had a client, and he gave me access to his business bank account as his accountant, and I was seeing all of these transactions for slippery slope.
My goodness. This is let me
Okay,
sit up straight for this. This is about to get
so
good.
I said, after I saw it several times, and his business didn't have anything to do with a carnival
Mhm.
where you might have a water slide or
Okay.
something.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
I said, come on into my office because I wanted to look him in the eyes
Mhm.
personally.
We got to talk about this. Right.
Yeah,
We
we,
got to
we
chat.
got to talk. So
Mhm.
he sits there and I pull out all of the documents and I say, so tell me what is slippery slope that you
Mm.
frequent? And his eyes did this.
Just like mine just did. Right.
And I'm like, is there a problem? I mean, there are lots of transactions for slippery slope in your business bank account. And he said to me, pardon me for that phone, you guys.
It's getting good. Now, this is a
I
cliffhanger.
know,
That's
right?
good.
He
That's
says,
probably him right now.
right?
Getting your phone. Like, you telling my business. This is
He says to me, well, I mean, why do I have to tell you about that? I said, well, it's in the business bank account. This is what you pay me to do. And so he says, okay, so Slippery Slope is an adult entertainer that I frequent often.
Hmm. Hmm.
I said, okay,
Okay. All right.
well,
All right.
okay.
We don't judge over here.
So
Okay.
no judgment. Does it have anything to do with the business? And he had to say, no, it doesn't. So what we did was we did a review of how he was paying himself, and we made appropriate adjustments so that he could pay himself and then pay for Slippery Slope out of the personal account, not the business.
Can I just raise one question, tax professional? Could it be said that if he were not visiting Slippery Slope, that he could not function well in his business? Could that be
okay? So
I'm just asking.
That is a real possibility.
Okay.
And my answer to that would be this. You feel uncomfortable sitting in front of me explaining that, correct? And I'm your auntie accountant. How are you going to feel sitting in front of Uncle Sam explaining it?
Or your wife, if you're married. I'm just, it's how
when she calls me and says, hey, explain this.
Right.
How do we handle that?
Right. Got it.
So if you are okay with sitting in front of Uncle Sam and explaining how Slippery Slope is a requirement for what you do, by all means. I don't think you want those problems. So let's keep Slippery Slope out of the business account. And let's make sure we're not co-mingling.
Right. So what he could have done, he could have just paid Slippery Slope from Cash App or from Zelle or something like that, right?
What he should have done was come to me and said, hey, auntie accountant, Miss Moon, I know I'm paying myself X amount per week, but I have some additional expenses that I need to be able to cover. And so I would have reviewed his P&L. And I would have said, sure, there's an extra $1,000 a month that we can pay you.
Discretionary funds.
And then you can use it how you see fit.
Right. To your discretion. Okay. I like that. I like that. Not that I need to know that information at all, but, there's somebody who can benefit from this story.
Correct.
That's all I'm going to say. They don't. Slippery Slope is, man. So I wanted to ask because last year it came out that the government, we're talking about the government. So the government was planning on kind of taxing folks who use Cash App and PayPal and Zelle. And as a small business owner, that's something that I use. I use those things a lot, right? But it seemed to me like they didn't have a hold on how they were going to do it, right? Like, how can you differentiate somebody paying me for a service $600 and then say, well, if someone gives me a gift for $600, right? Then like, how would you tell the difference between those two? Can you talk about where we stand with that now? I've seen some news stories, but I want you to talk about where we stand with that law, or soon to be law, or possibly to be law now going into this particular tax season.
Okay, that's a great question because that is a hot topic. So everyone can relax that we do not have to report that for 22. It is being said that we will have to report it for 23, meaning all of your transactions in 23 reported in 24. Okay, so let me just back up and kind of clarify what happened. All of these payment apps, Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, all of these have become very popular and money is moving from me to you, from business to business, from family member to family member. Money is moving. And remember, as much as we side-eye Uncle Sam funds our country, roads and schools and all of the social services programs. Those are funded by our tax dollars. So as much as we side-eye, we need Uncle Sam. So Uncle Sam, the IRS, our government, really wanted to crack down on all this money moving, that there was no reporting for it. And so the answer was 1099 all of these payment sources, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle. But just as you said, there was no clear way to delineate whether this was a personal transaction or a business transaction. So, for example, if I have 8 nieces and nephews and I Cash App them each $100 for their birthday, then that's $800 that I would potentially have to pay taxes on. That's where the problem came in. Versus if I am paying 8 business owners $100, they should pay taxes on that money. So that is where we sit right now, that for this year, you don't have to worry about it. However, for next tax season, anything you do in 23, the law currently is that you will get a 1099 from these payment sources.
For $600 or more, right?
Correct.
Is it, and this is actually a personal question, because I didn't understand if it is it $600 for one transaction, or is it a total of $600? So if you get a total of $600 on one of those, they 1099 you.
Correct.
Okay.
So again, if you have 8 nieces and nephews and you send them each $100 for their birthday, that's $800. That's a 1099.
So why am I paying taxes on if I'm giving it?
Well, that's where we are today.
Right.
That's why they had to put a pause on it, because there's no clear way to delineate.
So the nieces and nephews wouldn't have to pay on the $100 that they received, right? It would be the person who's sending, kind of like a gift tax, right?
Right.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay. That makes sense.
Or if the nieces and nephews received more than 600 total in their Cash App, then yes, they would.
Right. So it sounds like they're taxing. The plan is for them to tax it coming and going, right?
Correct.
Both sides.
Correct.
Wow. Let's talk about crypto. That's a hot topic for people who are into crypto and may not necessarily know that even like crypto is being taxed now. Is that correct? Right. Correct. So, while we might have escaped the taxes for now on the payment processing apps and things like that, cryptocurrency is something that is currently being taxed. I remember seeing it probably for the first time maybe 2 years ago. Does that sound about right? About 2 years ago? How should people handle like reporting their the crypto market is super down right now. So I don't know if anybody's actually winning in crypto, but if anybody has money that they've earned in crypto, like how is that to be reported, and how should that be handled in terms of income?
Again, that's going to be reported on a 1099 from your crypto merchant. Whichever merchant you're using, they are required to issue you a 1099. And let me make something real clear. Oftentimes, I see people who receive 1099s and just may forget to disclose it to me. Here's the thing. That merchant, that crypto merchant, is required to report it to the IRS directly.
Right.
So Uncle Sam already knows.
You already know.
He already knows, and he's just waiting for you to report it. So it's very important to make sure you report all income. And then if you have appropriate deductions, to take the appropriate deduction to offset the income. So in the crypto world, if you have significant losses that offset the income, make sure you're keeping up with that, whether it's in a spreadsheet or some type of software. You want to keep up with those losses.
And the same thing would go for people who have money in the stock market, right? So if you have a brokerage account, whether it be Fidelity or Chase or Robinhood or whatever the case may be, they're going to 1099 you at the end of the year. And if you had losses, or if you had money that you've gained, that's going to have to also be reported.
Correct.
right? And
There are several different kinds of 1099s. So when you get your 1099, it might say 1099B or 1099 DIB or 1099 INT. There are
1099R,
several
right?
kinds of 1099s for these different funding sources.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, all of those are reportable. But again, make sure you have your expenses to offset that income.
And just on a, and I don't want to dive too deep into this, but you know, if you do have a business, at sometimes you can have your business begin to purchase stocks and things like that for you. You
Mm-hmm.
can purchase it, but that's a different conversation. But
Right.
I think it's important that folks, you know, just again know how to take advantage of these, you know, different tax laws. I think with COVID, with you know that the COVID year, we saw a boom of people preaching financial literacy, right? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big fan of EY. I got a assets over liability hoodie on. Like I think, you know, we see a lot of people who preach that and who talk about that. But I think it's important that we as a people begin to educate ourselves in all areas of finance, not just the good stuff, right? Because all of
Right.
us, oh, you know, in 2020, we got the stimulus checks, like, oh, let's go in and throw this into the stock market. Oh, let's go
Right.
invest. But no one was talking about, oh, well, if you put it in the stock market and you start winning in the stock market, you're going to have to pay taxes. Or if you
Correct.
put it in crypto in 2020 and you start winning when Bitcoin was up to $70,000, you're going to have to pay some taxes, right?
Correct.
Nobody talks about that. So I think these types of conversations are important because we get the sugar and we also get, you know, the other stuff, right? And this is
The
the stuff that
sugar
we
honey iced tea.
bingo, right? This is the stuff that we oftentimes don't want to discuss because these require hard conversations, right? These are
Right.
hard conversations that
Right.
sometimes might have to come to someone like you and say, hey, like my books are messed up. I don't know where I
Correct.
went wrong. I need some
Correct.
help. So I think this conversation is important. I want you to talk about for parents, particularly who might have, let's say we have teenagers in the home who are working, right? So let's say you have a child in the home who's working. Your child is 16 or 17 or dependent that's working. What happens with those funds? Does that child file for taxes? Do you file them on your taxes? Talk to the parents and tell them how that should work.
Okay, that's a really good question, particularly since the TCJA. So, the TCJA is the law that Donald Trump put into place. And based on that law, what we used to see happening with dependents, we're not able to see as much because at 17, they pretty much tap out as it relates to earned income credit and these large credits that people are expecting. So if your minor child is working, it depends on how much they're earning. And I don't want to give you a number because some kids are making a lot of money. We have social media influencer, we have kids that are, working 30 hours a week, making 13, 14, $15,000 a year.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to give you a number, but I definitely will say talk to your tax professional because they do need to file. However, there may be some benefits that they're not aware of because of their age. So, for example, I work really closely with my parents to make sure that not only are their taxes straight, their children's taxes are straight. And I want to put out a warning here that if you have a 17-year-old or even an 18-year-old still at home working, make sure you ask them not to file until you guys talk about it as a family. I have a current client who went from owing $2,000 to owing over $6,000 because her 17-year-old was talking to a friend and the friend said, oh, just go online and do XYZ and you'll get a refund of $800. Well, to the 17-year-old, that $800 was like, yes, let me have it.
Right.
But it cost his mom over $4,000.
Wow.
So tell your children, do not get these W-2s and go file. Talk about it as a family. Let your tax professional look at everybody's and give you some guidance
Right.
on the best way to file.
Right. That makes sense. So look, we're gonna wrap things up right here. I
Okay.
want you to tell people how to get in contact with you if they have questions or concerns, or if they want to have their taxes prepared by someone who really knows what they're talking about. Please feel free to share that information with the good people.
Awesome. So, you guys, my name is Dedra Moon. I am also known as your auntie accountant. I'm your auntie accountant because I'm going to help you with lots of love, but I'm going to get you straight if you cut up, okay? So, you can find me at the Moon Group on all of your social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I think I'm even on Pinterest. All of your social media, you can find us at the Moon Group, or you can go directly to our website, which is themoongroup.net, or you can give me a call at 833-864-1040. See what I did there? 1040. So 833 TMG 1040 is where you can find me.
Cool.
And you can even text me on that number.
Okay. All right. Text, phone call, whatever. Just make sure you holler at her if you have questions about getting your taxes done, or accounting services, or just if you just need an auntie in your life. She'll be sure to help you with that too.
Indeed. We offer accounting, bookkeeping, tax prep, tax planning. So if each year you're showing a huge balance, you need tax planning. There are some strategies that can help you with that. So call your auntie. I got you.
That's what it is. Dedra Moon, thank you, man. We appreciate you talking to the good people. That does it for this episode of Black People Parenting, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Take care of your kids. Take care of each other. But most importantly, take care of yourself. We will see you on the next episode of Black People Parenting, y'all. Peace.
Bye, y'all.